Thanks, Richie. All right. So yeah, I'll touch on that again. I don't think we've done a good job at one, communicating the existence of this call, and two, communicating the intent of this call. But really what we want is an opportunity to engage with the community, as well as provide the community some information, some feedback on what's new, what's being worked on, problems that we're trying to solve, new features, ideas. So everybody is welcome. Participation is certainly not required, but encouraged. So there is the document, which is probably how most people got here, in the sort of ephemeral Google Meet chat. And there's a rough agenda on there. Feel free to add agenda items at the end if there's something you want to talk about. We have an hour, so we've got lots of time here to dig into some of this stuff. So I will kick it off talking a little bit about 1.7.0. That should be, the plan is to release that today or tomorrow. Most of my plans around this always get pushed a little, so it might be early next week. This release is mostly to get all of the changes that have been done for alerting and BoltDB shipper, which maybe we're going to start calling object store Loki, single store Loki. I don't know. Still playing with that. But there's been a lot of work done on both of these things, and we're not quite at the these are production ready state, but they're very close. We're using them. We're running the BoltDB shipper in an ops cluster now that does a few terabytes of logs a day. And we're looking for feedback for people to run stuff. The documentation is for alerting, I think, is pretty good. Owen did a really good job there. For BoltDB shipper, I need to go back through it again. The only thing I'm sort of concerned about with that is we haven't had a lot of opportunity to sort of test upgrade paths from existing instances. So I've got a few instances running around. We have a few that we need to upgrade, but my only word of caution there is don't, go straight to prod. Hopefully there's an environment that can play around with first. I don't anticipate problems. We don't have any. There may be a couple known issues in the upgrade path, specifically like with 1.6.0, there's a new RPC endpoint or gRPC endpoint that requires, in a microservices mode, an order of operations, you need to upgrade ingesters first. If you don't, you just have a brief querying. You'll get some errors at query time. But so look for the 1.7.0 release soon. We probably won't do a lot of press around it, but we are going to just look for people that are here, people that are in the Slack that are using or interested in these features that can play around with them and give us some feedback. The one thing, excuse me, here. Excuse me. The one part of alerting that we would like to have is a UI page. It probably will be exactly what's the Prometheus UI looks like. Might exactly be the Prometheus UI. It probably will, so that when you load alerts, you can see what's loaded. So that's missing right now. You can use the API to query this stuff in Cortex tool. I'm jumping ahead. I don't know if Owen made it today. Did he? Owen's here. Owen, you want to give an overview on alerting since it's next on the list? Since I just started doing that for you.
Yes, I heard my name. I was making coffee. Good morning, everyone. I am the slowest member on the Loki team to wake up in the morning. What do you need to know about the ruler?
I think so what would people expect in 1.7.0 in terms of where can they find docs? What is the recommended way of working with it, like Cortex tool?
Yes. So right now, I think Cortex tool is probably the most effective route. That's referenced in the docs and was originally written to interact with Cortex, but because we implement a lot of the same APIs, works just as well with Loki. There's some examples there, and then there's also a GitHub action, which Grafana Labs vends, which uses that, so it should make it easy to integrate with your CI pipelines as well. And there's also an example for that too. I heard that you mentioned we have plans for a very slimmed down UI on top, which we will vend in Loki, which will probably just be like server-side rendering and that sort of thing. And then there's also an independent effort to bring an alerting UI to Grafana Cloud as well. I think those are all of the current ways to interact with it.
Yeah, definitely. If you are using Grafana Cloud and you want to play around with alerting through that UI, just find us somehow. You can email support or find us in Pub Slack, eWelch, or Owen. I forget now what you're in there. I feel like I should know that. It's probably just Owen.
I think it's just Owen.
And we're going to do sort of a trial type thing for people that are interested. All right. Thanks, Owen. And now I'm going to turn it over to Cyril to talk about the LogQL v2 stuff. I did link to the design doc, which is effectively formalized now. So people can go look at what the syntax is going to look like, but it probably would be more fun for Cyril just to demo it a bunch.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Yeah, the design doc is not fully up to date. I haven't got the time to actually update it fully from the last decision that we made, but it's already like a good. If you read it, you can already have a good idea of what this is about. And so I have a preview, which I actually just finished today. And so I'm going to share my screen. So it's almost finished, but let me share my screen. Where is this? Yeah. Trying to find the right tabs. They are all named Grafana. This is not helpful. All right, so I'm going to share all of them. All right. Is it good enough? Yeah, can everyone see this?
Yeah, seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So currently I'm just looking at some logs of Loki itself, actually, in our dev environment. And this is this is something that you are probably used to. And I'm doing a simple filter here, and I'm looking for like a specific log line that always has the same format. And what's cool about this format, it has a ton of information about the execution of each query that someone in the Grafana team did. And so what we can do, you probably recognize the log format here. And so what we can do is we can type log formats, and this is going to automatically parse each line, and then we'll add as labels all those properties. So we can look at all the properties. So now we can see that we have all the properties automatically added as a label, plus the one that contains script or whatever agent you're using. And so we can start doing filtering on those new properties. So I can start to look at the one, for instance, that have the throughput. All right, so let's do the throughput. That is, so it's in megabyte. That's lower than 100 megabytes. And so it's gonna filter with only those, right? And I can add something else. I could add also, I want to see the one at where is the latency? Yeah, there's a latency somewhere. Step, I think it's duration.
Duration.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah, duration. So duration is in a specific format. It's the Golang duration format. So if you're using Go, you should be familiar. But we're gonna want at some point to support many different type of formats. But we support that one for now. So I can add another one. I can say, oh, and the duration is bigger or equal than 200 milliseconds. Right? And I can run that query. And so this time, this is a combination of the two. And I could see that this is only the queries that are slower than 200. So this one was very close, 204 milliseconds. What's kind of cool is this query is a bit like there's a ton of information that I may not need. So the trace is something that I would like to see, but I could technically reformat the line. So it's called line format. So as you can see, everything that you will do on logs will be done through the pipes operation. This is all explained in the design document. And I can use a template, and I can show, for instance, the query. So this time I'm just showing the query. Right, so I could add the latency. I'm going to put the latency at the beginning. So latency was, oops, there's one more. Latency. So this is like a Go template format. I think it's pretty popular since this is the same that you have in Hugo. And it was duration. The duration. I think I can add whatever. And so this time I'm showing duration and the query next to it. So I can see all the queries that are slower than 200 milliseconds and that have a throughput in megabytes lower than 100 megabytes. So that's so there's a ton of other features that you're going to be able to do. We can relabel some label if you don't like them the way they are. So I actually never tried this one because I finished this proof of concept today. So I'm going to try to, let's say, latency. I'm going to try to relabel the latency. So I think it's label format and it's latency. It's say foo equal latency. So latency should be named foo now. Hopefully that's going to work. And foo, yeah. So that rename the latency label. And the latency label disappeared. And what you can do with those is you can actually have multiple of them, and you can use template instead if you don't want to. If you don't want to rename, you can just create a new label. And I think you can create, let's say, bar. So this is a very bad example of a name. I'm sorry, but let's say this one could be namespace. I'm going to call it bar namespace. This is a very bad example. I'm going to have a better example, right? And so I should have a new label. This name bar somewhere, and it's a result of the template, as you can see, bar and the namespace, right? So you can combine all of them like this. So that's kind of cool with the logs, but this opens up also a lot of new capability with the metrics that Loki can do. So I have a tab somewhere. So this is the one. So this one is very interesting. I'm doing the same. So I'm using the same logs that comes from the metri.go file. I'm doing a log format, looking at the duration that is above 100 milliseconds. And this time I'm using the unwrap operator, which will tells Loki to use this label as the metric and then remove the label throughput megabyte. And I'm doing an average. So the average of the throughput, and I can sum by the query because the query is extracted from the log format from the query itself. So I can see the throughput, the average throughput for I think I have like I don't know how many of them there is, but something like 30 type of different queries in that specific period. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. But that's pretty much it for the demo. There's a couple of other features that I haven't really shown here, but I'm gonna keep that for the observability.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, the sort of next level for Loki querying here. This closes the loop on a lot of the trouble that we have now, which is the message that we tell people that you should not use many labels at ingestion because that blows up the index. But there's a lot of operations, specifically metric operations, you can't do if you don't add labels to your logs. So now you don't have to, and we can sort of further go down that road of having a small index, but a really powerful query time approach. I'll show you this because I've been playing around with this too.
Yeah, I should mention that the image is available if some people want to play with the preview. It's still not the final one. There's some missing features, and also there's some probably some bugs because this is the first time I'm running this.
Yeah, definitely bugs. If you want, you could probably paste that image tag in the doc and just maybe caveat mTOR.
Yeah, let's do that.
So another big sticking point, I think, with Loki adoption are JSON logs. Historically, the experience here has been, a little rough around the edges. One big improvement. Yeah, this is an older version of Grafana, but in newer versions of Grafana, the ability to filter on log format or JSON by selecting certain values in the UI has helped quite a bit. This is an example of a pretty flat JSON object, so it's still fairly readable, but as they get really big, it's sort of hard to work with. So Cyril didn't demo this. I'll just give you guys a quick background on what this data actually is. This is another fun sort of expect a conference talk out of this someday, maybe. If you go out and spend $50-$60, you can buy a antenna and a Raspberry Pi and run software on it that will listen to broadcasted location messages from aircraft. So these are all the planes that are flying around my house right now. And I am storing their location information or the information that they send in Loki in basically this format. But now with LogQLv2, I can start to do some pretty fun stuff, right? So if I parse that as, maybe it'd be more fun to build that query as Cyril did. So there's, similar to log format, there's a stage called JSON that will turn all of the keys and values into labels. It is a little simplistic, especially if you have very big nested objects. It makes an entirely flat set of labels. So if you have nested objects, they become hex underscore object name. We're using underscore to do the separation, mainly because the lexer that we use for parsing the thing, there would be collisions with dot and some of the other language use cases. So I think that was the problem, or actually specifically the collision is that a label in Prometheus can't have a dot in the name. So it's not a lexer problem. It's a Prometheus label name restriction. So to make labels at query time or extraction time that are compatible, we have to sort of use the existing rules. And so exact same thing that Cyril just showed. So now I can look at, so in this case, I get some altitude information, or I believe there's speed information in here too, ground speed. So we can filter where ground speed is greater than like 100. Might be more interesting to see if we look for really fast planes. Let's see. There's a few, and then I could do also filtering on altitude, stuff like that. I think another interesting idea here, right? Like there's latitude and longitude. So you should be able to, and I don't have this query prepared, but You could actually do some geospatial stuff, right? Where I can say query on where the latitude is greater than this, but less than this. The longitude is greater than this and less than this. And then that would tell me all the information about airplanes that are in a certain area. Basically, I had to find a box with latitude and longitude. And the same sort of ability now with JSON that you can do with log format is to be able to, rebuild the line into something that's a little bit more human friendly. So in this case, this is the owner information for the planes. The way this information is captured is sort of repeated, which is why we see the same basically every second. I'm capturing the current information from the Raspberry Pi. If anyone is interested in how that actually works, you can check out FlightAware has a project called PiAware. There are a lot of other ways to get into this that don't require working with FlightAware, but if you do and you send them the information you capture, they give you some subscription information or whatever. But I don't know if I really need to be endorsing FlightAware, but I think the project is kind of neat and the information is kind of fun. And it gave us an opportunity to play around with some JSON logs.
Are you the owner of the company?
In full disclosure, I do own FlightAware. No, I don't. Oh wait, I can probably continue presenting here. So I can go look at the agenda. Gotta play the Google Meet. There it is. Getting better at this every time. All right. Owen. Still there?
Yeah. I have my camera on now.
More recharged from your coffee. You want to talk about the write ahead log?
Sure.
I'll go find the link to your design doc.
I have it right here. Nice. There's a PR up right now.
Oh yeah.
So yes, we are introducing a write-ahead log into Loki. That's the PR with the current iteration of the design doc. It's largely based on prior work already done in Prometheus and Cortex. And the idea here is to solidify some of the benefits that we already have, that we have tunable knobs for, particularly around the number of replicas you can use when you're writing series to our ingester level. And this will help us to persist data even across system restarts and that sort of thing, reschedulings if you're using stateful sets in Kubernetes, that sort of thing. It'll also really help our single binary use case, which you generally don't run with another layer of redundancy. So don't really have much more to say than this. It should give us a lot of extra benefits and fault tolerance.
Yeah, definitely closes the loop on. So operationally, you can make a pretty fault tolerant Loki setup now if you use replication. However, you're always at the mercy of, replica -1 or, replica equals failures, and you will lose data. We need to keep some amount of data in memory to make efficient storage. And so this will close the loop there such that we can keep a little bit more memory in data longer to be able to make some bigger chunks, which helps on the query side and the storage side, but not have the risk of your cloud provider rebooting your nodes all day and not telling you why. So not that that's ever happened. Let's see here. Go back to no.
Do we have any characteristics of this write-ahead log? Like, is it a 2 hours write-ahead log?
Sure. So right now, it's going to be checkpointed at a configurable interval. I believe upstream Cortex uses 30 minutes by default. I think we're probably going to try something a little bit more aggressive because it's much easier to write higher throughputs with log streams than it is with metrics, which depend on scrape intervals in Prometheus. So it'll be a 2-pass wall. The first one will actually accrue all of the operations individually, and then the second one will basically dump memory in a more efficient format. And this can be combined. The latter will be called checkpointing, and this can be combined to get a benefit of both speed when you're replaying and also guaranteed correctness. There's a lot more information in the design doc, which will hopefully
Thank you.
Okay, the last thing that I have on this list here. Someone from the community approached, I think, both Grafana and also Loki about centralizing Grafana product or project Helm charts into one central repo. If you go read that issue, you can see that I was initially skeptical. However, I have since been convinced there are a lot of benefits of centralizing, specifically around continuous integration and testing of the charts. It should also make it easier for us to add community contributors to help maintain. And so that is the direction that we plan to go in. It's just going to be a question of when we can sort of get the pieces moving. Things are a little on the busy side for the next month, so it might be a little slower. But in the meantime, it was Reinhardt, I don't remember his last name, has created a really nice microservices version of Loki. This has been a community ask since the beginning of time. We have been reluctant to do it because we already sort of build and maintain the JSON and Tonka configs that we use to deploy Loki in a microservices fashion. Helm is not a zero maintenance effort for us, so we weren't really excited about adding more Helm maintenance burden. However, I think this configuration of having a more centralized and more community involved repo will help with that. And it's regularly asked. I mean, the issue might have been closed by the stale bot, or we might have just closed it, or it might be, I'm sure there's an issue for this, and I'm sure it's well requested, but especially as people start playing around more with the parallelization of querying, the ability to scale things in that microservices fashion is helpful. So that is in planning and should happen. Can't guarantee you when, but at least in a month from now, we should have a better update. And that was the last thing on my list. Anybody have anything, questions? Other stuff we want to talk about? More LogQL v2 demos? I don't have any other demos ready. Going once. All right.
Hi, Eddie. I'm Roberto, and I want to ask you, what will be the approach for Loki? Like, you want to maintain the approach using Tanka to deploy it, or you are focused on the Helm charts? What will be the roadmap? You want to keep both, or you are choose one?
We'll keep both. Internally within Grafana, we use Tonka and JSON everywhere. A year or 2 years ago, I guess, when I started, I had no opinions on the subject. They were both new to me. At this point, after sort of maintaining Helm or helping the community maintain Helm and also maintain JSON, I firmly believe that the maintenance burden is lower on JSON and the capabilities are better. So if you have that infrastructure, so this is the big caveat, right? So the getting started with JSON is harder than Helm. I think what Helm does really well has a really nice out of the box experience. And with the single binary with Loki, I think that's led to a lot of early adoption, a lot of really ease of use. The problem is it's templating YAML, right? So we merge PRs every week where someone wants to extend the current Helm chart to do something that wasn't possible before. In JSON, you just don't have to do that, right? Like the way JSON composability works, you can pretty much always, manipulate the existing JSON in a way to suit your needs. So it has such a lower burden for us to have to do maintenance. Like we just make changes to it as we add features, basically. So we'll support both, but we are going to be leveraging the community heavily to help support the Helm pieces of it because they're the ones that are going to be using it a lot more than we are. But the reality is Helm is the most popular, I would say, for tooling around this. We're trying to encourage people to use JSON and Tonka, but it's not going to be for everybody and not everyone's using it. So I think we probably need both. So the goal there is just to try to keep, the time that we spend doing support of Helm lower than the time we spend like adding features and working on the product itself. So I think that was a roundabout answer for you. But.
Yes, it was. And one question I think is to Owen about the ruler. Do you have any plans to have like a operator or something like this to get the rules and apply this to have like the rules applying by like using GitOps or like RCD, this kind of tool, or we don't have any plans about this?
That's a really good question. Right now, we use the Cortex rules action GitHub action, which is built on top of the Cortex tool binary, which is the CLI we use to interact with the Loki ruler as well. And that can be, if you're familiar with GitHub actions, can be composed in your CI pipelines. And so we do that to do things like linting rules to make sure that they're valid logql, to diff them against what's deployed in our current environments, and then ultimately to deploy them to different environments when merged. So you can do that right now that way. Doing it with an operator would be another interesting choice. I don't think that realistically we'll be focusing on that quickly just due to the opportunity cost of time. But I also think that that could be a valuable effort. Someone else would probably need to focus on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Roberto. Appreciate the questions. All right.
So I have a question. At the beginning or before the beginning of this call, someone mentioned that they weren't sure if they are allowed to join here. So asking all the outside attendees, what can we do to make this message more clear, more obvious, that we say, yes, everyone is more than welcome to join and carry this even further?
It was me who asked that question. I'm not entirely sure, but I just, for one, there wasn't much notice. Now that's possibly my fault for not being watching the Slack channel often enough. But the message wasn't unwelcoming.
Okay. Thank you.
Your mic might have cut out, Graham, while you were talking there. I think you're still talking.
Oh, yeah,
your mic says that you're.
Graham, you're muted.
I can comment that the notification is not good. It has not historically been very good for that. I did get a tweet out today, but like an hour before it started, and nobody follows me on Twitter, so that's probably not the most helpful. But we are going to have to do, and I'm going to make a better effort for the future to give us some, much better visibility. Try to grow the amount of people. The Slack channel is good, but I don't know how much that, like I said, people pay attention to it. So we'll work to prove that. I don't know, Graham, if your mic or your headset is working now. I still don't hear you.
Sorry, I missed most of what you actually said. My microphone seems to cut out randomly. I don't know why. Depressingly, it's probably because I'm using a Linux desktop. But one thing I would like to ask about, if I may, is I feel very much that how I am attempting to use Loki in the organization where I work is the poor relation. So we don't have a Kubernetes infrastructure which is ready yet. And we also have issues when we do have Kubernetes ready with the whole checking the build of a particular container and so on, and patching. So that might take a while, but and this could just be a failure of documentation. But I got this slight impression too from what's been said today that running either in monolith mode or even separate in microarchitecture mode, but on VMs is kind of moving away from there. It's not a high priority. Is that fair, or am I? I mean, I do understand the attraction of Kubernetes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's something we should fix the communication on. There is absolutely no reason to not run Loki outside of Kubernetes. I think we just find ourselves having the conversations more around Kubernetes, and I think that's because we don't offer any tooling or support for the non-Kubernetes environments, right? Like we don't have Debian packages, we don't have Fedora pack. Like we don't have the things people would be using to run outside of Kubernetes, so they can't complain about them, I guess, is the like there can't be problems with them, as the complaints the wrong way to say that, right? Like
we have a SUSE package.
Yeah. So I personally have, Loki running on Raspberry Pis all around me right now. Systemd jobs that I set up to do that, they're all in monolith mode. Absolutely fine to run that way, and we should absolutely improve the documentation to communicate that. I think through some of the presentations and talks we try to do a better job there. I don't think that's translated its way down into the documents themselves. I think we probably make an assumption that too many people are using. In fact, feedback we've had at webinars around this is that it's not necessarily the majority of people even using Kubernetes at this point. So I think the bigger, harder question there is, do we want to go down the road of building packages for different operating systems, or, is there another way? Like, what's the right way to have a distribution? Right now, the binary, you just download it, you need a config file, but you're on the hook for, making it run. So the sort of long answer to your question there is no one should have any concerns about running monolith mode. We do want to have, some sizing considerations, as well as sort of a trade-off, like why that makes sense or doesn't, what you can do and what you can't do. And there's certainly no Kubernetes requirement involved.
Sorry, yeah, it isn't even entirely clear that it's possible to do certain things running in VMs. So the package thing actually isn't too much of an issue, because I love Go. Oh, no more download something, discover that you've got to update 1,500 Java dependencies, and it still doesn't work because you got the wrong JRE or something silly like that. Installing the binary is pretty straightforward. It's getting up a systemd unit file, equally straightforward. But then it seems like, but I'm not even sure this is possible. How to debug this? I had some issues with the network interface, the ENS0 or F1. That kind of thing was
the default for the ring config assumes F0, I believe, and that's not obvious. The memberless docs are not terribly obvious if you're trying to do, so you can run clustered monolith mode, like you can run a few of them with a ring. There are very much no docs for that. It's mostly an effort of the adventurous to figure that out. So I hear you there. That's good feedback too, because we definitely don't want people having the impression they should be discouraged or seek alternatives when there's no reason to in this case.
Yes, it was an adventure getting it running in monolith mode. And I'd hate to see people discouraged, as you said, by, rats, I've got to set up a Kubernetes infrastructure first.
Right. One prerequisite, just all you need is Kubernetes. Adding a note here for this. Don't know how to solve our docs problem specifically, other than writing docs, I guess. But it's just one of those sort of, it needs to be made a higher priority. And it's been on my list for a while, and I've not been successful. So we do have some growth coming to the Loki team, although everybody says it's mean to make the new people just go write docs. But maybe that'll free us up to go write some better, get some better experience here.
I agree with this.
You think we should make the new people right?
No, no, I think it's mean.
Yeah.
No, I strongly believe we should have new ones write docs, but we are also aggressively hiring more docs and content people, and also if anyone on this call would be willing to start scratching their own itches, we definitely have people who are professionals in creating docs who would love to help with a community effort to improve this. Like, you can rely on professional tech writers to copy edit what you produce and such. Like, if you're interested in this, we can definitely support you with professional help. And again, we are hiring even more people to expand. Of course, content and docs is absolutely essential to our community strategy.
Ask me that again in a month when I've got our POC environment happily running. Certainly I noticed that there were a couple of spelling mistakes in the documentation that I just wanted to correct because I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi.
Yeah, Hacktoberfest, man. You get that free shirt right now. Thanks for the feedback, Graham. Appreciate it. And let's just open it back up if anybody else has anything. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody joining. We will do it better. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll get everybody we can to show up at the Loki call, and we'll see everybody in a month. Thanks for joining.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks very much. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.